For years, Toyota looked almost disconnected from the electric car race. While Tesla was turning EVs into status symbols, and BYD was flooding markets with cheaper battery-powered cars, Toyota kept doing something strangely old-fashioned. It kept building hybrids, quietly, patiently, almost stubbornly. And a lot of people thought that hesitation would eventually cost them everything. Because while the rest of the industry was chasing the future at full speed, Toyota, the biggest car company on Earth, seemed to be standing still. Then, almost without warning, Toyota revealed a small electric SUV with a price tag that made the entire industry stop and look twice. Around $23,000. Not 40, not 6023. At first, it sounded impossible, because this wasn't some unknown startup making promises online. This was Toyota, the same company people trust to survive for 10 years, sometimes 15, with barely any drama. And suddenly, that company was entering the most dangerous part of the EV market: affordable, electric cars for ordinary people. That's when the conversation changed, because the real story wasn't the car itself. It was what the car quietly revealed about Toyota's strategy. For nearly a decade, critics accused the company of falling behind. Tesla was becoming the face of innovation. BYD was becoming a manufacturing machine. Meanwhile, Toyota kept warning that the world wasn't ready to switch fully to electric overnight. Most people ignored those warnings. Some even laughed at them. But now, looking at this new SUV, people are starting to wonder if Toyota was actually waiting for something. Waiting for battery prices to fall, waiting for charging infrastructure to improve, waiting until EVs became cheap enough for normal families instead of early adopters. And this is where the story starts to get uncomfortable for Toyota's competitors. Because if Toyota really waited on purpose, then this tiny SUV may be the first sign that the world's most experienced automaker is finally ready to move. And if that's true, companies like Tesla and BYD may not be competing against the Toyota people remember from the past. They may be facing a version of Toyota that spent years studying every weakness in the EV market before making a move. To understand why this matters so much, you first have to understand how massive Toyota actually is. Most people hear that Toyota is the largest car company in the world, but the number barely feels real until you slow it down. In 2025, Toyota and its related brands sold more than 11 million vehicles globally. That's around 31,000 vehicles every single day. More than 1,000 cars every hour. Entire countries run on Toyota vehicles. From crowded streets in Bangkok to deserts in the Middle East to suburbs in America, Toyota built something much bigger than just a car brand. It built trust. And trust matters more in the car industry than most people realize. Because buying a car is different from buying a phone or a laptop. People don't want experiments. They want something that starts every morning. Something affordable to repair. Something that still works after years of bad roads, heat, traffic, and neglect. That's exactly why Toyota became so dominant in the first place. Its cars weren't always the fastest or the most exciting, but they survived. Again and again. The strange part is that Toyota carried this massive advantage into the EV era, yet barely used it. While Tesla built excitement around speed and software updates, Toyota stayed focused on hybrids. In fact, even in 2025, the company sold far more hybrids than pure electric vehicles. Millions more. Critics saw that as proof Toyota was behind. But internally, Toyota seemed to believe something different. It believed the average customer still wasn't ready for expensive EVs with uncertain resale value and weak charging infrastructure. So instead of rushing, Toyota kept watching. And while everybody focused on flashy announcements and futuristic prototypes, Toyota kept learning something extremely important about the market. Most people did not actually want the best electric car. They wanted the safest financial decision. They wanted something affordable, something practical, something they trusted. That realization changed everything, because once Toyota understood that the future EV market might belong to ordinary middle-class families instead of tech enthusiasts, the entire strategy shifted. Suddenly, the goal wasn't to beat Tesla in acceleration. It wasn't to build the most advanced, self-driving software. The goal became much simpler and potentially much more dangerous. Build an EV normal people can actually buy. That sounds obvious now. But for years, the EV market moved in almost the opposite direction. Prices climbed higher, features became more expensive, screens became bigger, performance numbers became ridiculous. Car makers kept building electric vehicles for people who were already comfortable spending luxury car money. Meanwhile, millions of ordinary drivers sat on the sidelines waiting for something. Realistic. Toyota saw that gap, and the urban cruiser EV appears, designed specifically for that moment. Not too large, not too expensive, not overloaded with futuristic experiments. Just enough range for daily life, enough space for families, enough reliability to reduce fear. It almost feels boring at first glance. But that may actually be the most dangerous part of Toyota's strategy. Because boring scales, boring sells, boring reaches millions of people. But this only becomes important once you see the decision Toyota made about the battery. Because hidden underneath this SUV is the part of the story that could explain why Toyota waited so long to enter the affordable EV market in the first place. Instead of chasing the most expensive battery technology available, Toyota chose LFP batteries, lithium iron phosphate, and to many people, that sounded underwhelming. Tesla already used versions of it. BYD built its empire around it. So why was Toyota suddenly betting on the same chemistry? The answer has less to do with performance, and more to do with survival. LFP batteries are cheaper to produce. They are generally safer under high temperatures. They degrade more slowly over time, and most importantly, they make affordable EVs possible. That one decision changes the economics of everything. Without it, this SUV likely wouldn't cost $23,000. It might cost $35,000 or more. And once prices rise that high, millions of middle-class buyers disappear instantly. Toyota understood that, but the company also understood something else most EV manufacturers don't openly discuss. A lot of consumers are still quietly afraid of electric cars. They worry about battery fires, expensive replacements, long-term reliability, charging anxiety. Toyota's entire reputation depends on removing fear from ownership. So instead of building the most exciting battery system, Toyota may have chosen the battery that creates the least anxiety for ordinary buyers, and suddenly the company's slow behavior over the past few years starts looking very different, because maybe Toyota wasn't late. Maybe Toyota simply refused to enter the EV market until the technology became cheap, stable, and predictable enough for mass adoption. And if that's true, this small SUV may be less important as a vehicle, and more important as a signal. A signal that Toyota believes the market is finally ready. And if the world's largest automaker truly believes that, then this story may only be starting now. What makes this even more interesting is that Toyota didn't build this car like a science project. It built it like a household appliance. That sounds insulting at first, until you realize household appliances are successful for one reason. People trust them to work every day without thinking about them. And that mindset changes the entire feeling of the urban cruiser EV. The numbers themselves are solid, but not revolutionary. Depending on the version, the SUV offers roughly 400 kilometers of range, enough for commuting, school runs, shopping, and occasional road trips. Fast charging takes less than an hour to recover most of the battery. Performance is quick enough to feel responsive in traffic. But Toyota clearly avoided turning this into a "look how fast we are" machine. Even the design reflects that philosophy. It looks modern but controlled, stylish but not aggressive. Everything about the vehicle feels carefully calibrated to avoid scaring mainstream buyers, and that restraint may end up becoming Toyota's biggest advantage, because Tesla built its reputation by making EVs feel futuristic. BYD built its strength by making EVs affordable. But Toyota is trying to make EVs feel normal, familiar, predictable, safe. That sounds less exciting in headlines, but possibly much more powerful in real life. Think about the average buyer for a moment. Most people don't wake up dreaming about torque numbers or autonomous driving software. They worry about monthly payments, service costs, whether the battery will survive summer heat, whether replacement parts will exist 5 years later, whether the company selling the car will even still be around in a decade. That's where Toyota becomes extremely dangerous. Because, unlike startups chasing growth, Toyota already solved those trust problems decades ago, and competitors know it. especially BYD, for years. BYD mastered the affordable EV formula: cheap battery production, competitive pricing, fast expansion. In many ways, BYD forced the entire industry to take low-cost EVs seriously. But Toyota entering this territory changes the emotional equation for buyers. Suddenly, customers who were curious about affordable EVs no longer have to gamble on an unfamiliar ecosystem. Now they can buy from a company their parents already trusted, their mechanics already understand,